Good afternoon, everybody, and hi, Courtney.
Hello, Heidi.
We are excited to be filming our 30th episode, and we just want to say thank you so much to all of you that have subscribed and tune in every Sunday to listen to Courtney's stories, and we're excited to do maybe another 30 episodes.
Probably. I mean, I'm still alive, barely.
We've got a lot of ground to cover still, so I'm going to let Courtney take it away. Enjoy, guys. Thanks,
Thank
Courtney.
you. Well, hello. The last episode, I decided I was going to return to the United States from England. I'd been staying primarily with my dad and his second family, and it was lovely visiting with my family over there, my mother and sister and her family, and of course my dad's tribe and all of the cousins. There's a whole lot of them, maybe between half brothers and sisters and cousins, I think there's 30 of them. So that was a lot of visiting and a lot of gin and tonics. So I resolved to return to the United States and, get on with things, in spite of the opportunities that could be developed in England. It wouldn't have been such a bad life, and being in the bosom of my family, so to speak, it was quite nice. It was lovely, but I still wanted to continue my adventure, and looking for my big moment, whatever that may be. So I'd been running. I started running again and got my mileage up, and pumping out hundreds of push-ups and stuff like that. Just to kind of strengthen myself up. Which is part of my rehab, of course. And then I flew back to the United States. Didn't have anything going on. I'd been gone a long time. Between the hospital and the visit to England, several months, maybe at least 6 months or more. And things move along fast. The world rushes by, and when you come back, it's like a whole new world. Everything costs twice as much, and it's half as available. So and I was starting over from zero. So I stayed with Bob Matthews, who most of you'll know is, was the sound engineer for the Grateful Dead, and particularly in the early days, and on and off, between him and Better Matthews, of course, who became Better Matt Jackson. Anyway, I was still struggling with, the depression from the losing Keith. My injuries and recovery were really secondary to recovering, if you can call it actually recovering from the loss of Keith. You never really recover, but you live with it. So, and I was keeping my running up and determined to do a marathon when the San Francisco Marathon came around next. So, but I was slipping back into some, bad ways, so to speak, with substances and stuff like that, and I can't blame it on depression, but, I certainly wasn't at full strength. But there were some bright things that came along, and one of them, the first thing that did come along, was I got a call from the Bartoli, Bob Bartoli and Bartoli brothers were working with Bill Graham Productions. They were basically running the show back then in terms of the actual productions, and they suggested that the Grateful Dead were going to do a 3-day event, three-day weekend at the Greek Theatre, Berkeley, which is a wonderful old theatre. It's an amphitheatre. It's not really big. I think it seats, somewhere close to 10,000. That's about it. And it has that stone Greek facade, like an old Greek temple or something. Not good sound, even though it's an amphitheatre, it's broadcasting to this, half dome, semi dome, this half circle, rising up around, and it. So what they did was to put up a big backboard across the facade. They actually free-built it, and wasn't attached to the facade. So it was like a 20 by 50 foot backboard. They painted it black, and then they said, well, that's a little, it's kind of like a green screen but black, and it does reflect the sound off the stage out toward the audience, and it's a big improvement. So the Bartosodis had this idea to have me do a big backdrop for it, and I was happy to get that commission, but I only had 10 days to get the whole gig together. It was a last minute thing, and so I managed. I found a source for used sheets from a hotel chain or something like that, and so they were well laundered, but they were all queen size. They were in good shape. There weren't any holes in them or anything like that, and they were very supple, and they're really good to dye because they weren't heavy and crisp and they were softened by all the launderings, and they were really ideal for tie dyeing. And I bought a couple of dozen that worked out to about $3 a piece, which was damn good. And at that time, I was renting a little cottage on the beach out in Courtenay Bay, right on the sands. It was a lovely spot, and a couple of bedrooms, and one bedroom was my work studio, where I had the big layout tables and things, and then one was my bedroom, and then the living area was right on the ocean front, looking out the picture windows, and it was really idyllic. And there were outbuildings out there, and I could pin the finished panels to the outbuildings, to dry and to photograph. And my friend Douglas Garn, he was a young fellow I met at my dear friend Daniel Svagelko at the time. He's now Daniel Murphy, when he started doing music and art productions out of Mill Valley, which he's still doing. And this young man was going with there was 3 children with Daniel's partner, Carol Burns, and they were all living in the house, at the time when I was spending time over at Daniel's. And the girl, Stephanie, her boyfriend was Douglas Garn. They were a similar age, which would make him a generation younger than me. But he was cool and hip and smart, and he volunteered to come over and be my assistant to put this backdrop together, which he did, and it was great to have company and have the help, of course, because we only had a week to put it together. So I worked night and day to get the panels all done, and they were coming out really well. And I had chosen to do that Serpentine Design, which for you that know about the 1981 backdrop at the Greek, it's like the half circles undulating like a dragon across the top in gold and the bottom the inverse of that in a dark color, and it makes these diamond shapes between the two as the panels progress, and they've got all the little scarabs along the serpentine, top and bottom and inside. It was a lot of work, and then I got a hold of this fellow in San Francisco who did the stage sets and green screens for the San Francisco Opera Company, and he was adept at putting these big pieces together, these collages essentially together, and he said, no trouble, no worries, I'll put it together for you. So I labeled where everything went and handed off the package. He sewed it up absolutely flawlessly, not a wrinkle, not a ripple. It was just perfect. all the squares together into the finished backdrop, and I hung it on the backboard single-handed. I had this really tall A-frame ladder that I could get up to the 20 feet up there, and I hung the thing single-handed. The whole backdrop only weighed the weight of 16 sheets or something, whatever it was, and so was able to feed them out to me. I just pinning them along the top and carrying the weight of it, and then slide carrying the weight down, gathering it up as I go back up the ladder. And meanwhile, the crew is setting up all the equipment on the stage for the show, and of course the sound check, which is I'd no sooner got the thing pinned from the top and stretched out top and bottom and make sure that it wasn't going to blow away in the wind or anything like that, and then there was sound check, and so I was able to walk out front and check it out, and it looked so much better from a distance, which I hadn't seen it yet. It was just in my mind I'd seen it. So to go out and stand back and look at it, and then so I was really happy with the results. Meanwhile, I think I was on my 10th day without sleep. I have those periods of not sleeping, not because by choice, just because I have so much going on. And unlike being in Egypt, where I didn't sleep because I had time in the sarcophagus rejuvenating, I didn't have that, here. So I was probably propping myself up with stimulants, and as well as yoga rest cycles. I'm still doing those. And so everything's good, and the gig's that evening, we literally finished soundtrack. The gig started at 7 or whatever, we finished around 5. So I had a little break, got something to eat, and the show was fabulous. And I'd walk through around the amphitheater, and people are already gathered there before the actual music starts, and everybody was talking about the backdrop. It was really, it was the best, reward for me to hear the remarks, and people they were loving it. And of course, nothing like that had really been done in the world. Not in tie-dye certainly, but have a big overall design that, completely fits together as one big collage, one big design made out of lots of little, component panels. And and I didn't have a camera or anything like that. Douglas Garn, he photographed some of the panels when we were hanging them up out at the beach house when we were producing them, and he'd helped me hang them up, and then he got a few snapshots. But it didn't even occur to me how important it would be to get good pictures that I owned of this backdrop, not looking down the road and realizing, this had become a historic piece. And, none of that was, I was still going along like, every day's an eternity, life is forever, and it's a non-stop experiential adventure of creation, which it is. It's you dream your life and you perform it, and looking back, of course, life is, as Shakespeare said, life is but a dream, and it is. Everything went so fast, but at the time it's forever. I'm sure most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, the gig was a great success. Now I hadn't been. There was no deal made, no monetary deal made about the backdrop between myself and Bill Graham's office or the band or anything like that. And so I owned the backdrop, and I got somebody, it might have been Geraldine or to get a photograph of the backdrop, and get a big photograph where I could label each panel with A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, so on. So they were each panel's designated with a number, and I pinned it up at the merchandising booth, you know, for the Grateful Dead merchandising booth, and for people, if they wanted to buy a particular panel, they could put a deposit and put their name and deposit against that panel number. And after the 3-day event, I just ripped out the seams, you know, freed each panel and handed them up, you know, folded them up, handed them off to whoever bought them, and they'd all sold, you know, by the end of the gig. And I charged $300 US, USD, which back in 1981, I think money was probably worth 10 times what it is now. So 300 doesn't sound like much, but it was quite a lot back then. I mean, it was a good few grand's worth. So, you know, I got myself paid, and, excuse me. But in retrospect, I wished I could have just kept it intact, you know, for posterity. And that's true for all the backdrops I did, you know, but of course that, I mean, I was in the business of doing these things to make a living. Of course, it's excuse me. It's a thrill to be able to do something creative and new for the audience. You know, after all, it's it's the audience that makes the whole, you know, the band and excuse me, I beg your pardon. Everything that flows around the band wouldn't happen without the audience, the fans, the people buying the tickets and supporting it all. So it's a privilege to be able to do something for all the wonderful people that support the whole enterprise. So I got the backdrop all sold, and we packed up and went home. And then I probably slept for a day or so. But I don't know if I slept during that weekend of the actual gigs. I'm sure I did. I'm sure that first night I did go home, and I probably had a 12-hour sleep and then came back in for the next day's gig. I do remember hanging out up the top in the center grassy area above the whole amphitheater, with the stage down there and the backdrop and all the audience around, and just hung up there with a bunch of HAs, just getting high and having a great time and spoofing around, and you know, everything was light and happy, and you know, it was a really fun time. I know that Goldfinger showed up, you know, some of his cohorts, and well, a bunch of bad boys hanging around. And then, you know, went back to my beachfront house. It was right on the sands. It was a lovely spot, right in Bodega Bay, up towards the Sonoma line, the county line. And the next town up is Bodega Bay. And I can hear the pump roaring. That means it's water level's down. My basement's flooded. Whenever the rains come, the cellar floods, and then it snuffs out the water heater and then the furnace. And it's an ongoing battle. You can't push. The water is welling up out of the ground after every big rain. I'm right down on the waterfront, and there's mountains behind me. So, you know, it's a lot of water, and it's just one of those things that one lives with. Hopefully we don't all have to suffer the consequences of rainfall and flooding. So life went on. I was still between the excitement of doing having good commissions to spark my creativity and of course to, make some money. And I was still floundering a bit. I wasn't really set up with my business, and I'd been out of the flow for quite a long time. And during the hospitalization, of course, after the crash, all my seed bank stuff, all the plants I had going, which was like, I had everything committed to the last big, and I was going to have, tens, hundreds of thousands of seeds with all the genetics. Well, friends, fearing that maybe, the police had come by my residence during, for whatever reason, no reason really, but, the car wreck shouldn't have brought them to my house for any reason. I was in hospital, but anyway, friends went in and they just took down everything, just destroyed all the plants. There was about 220 plants. And so my grand plan for the seed bank that I'd worked on for years now, which was due to be launched at the end of that summer when I got all the seeds, during the fall. By Christmas I would have had the seed bank launched. Well, that was all gone. So that enterprise was gone. The coffee houses were gone. And my ongoing tie-dye business was not really ongoing because I hadn't been working it for so long. And so, it was a bit of a tough time. But so I actually floundered for a while. I lost the beach house. I stayed with another friend, and there was, there were risks taken, and but then, hey presto, a year passes by, and there's Bill Graham Productions on the phone again to do another backdrop, and they decided they wanted a rainbow tunnel. Well, sounds simple, right? Rainbow tunnel, it's like a half mandala, right? Rainbows. Well, except that you can't do, a 20-foot by 50-foot piece of cloth in one piece. It just, there's no way. And unless you were actually painting it on, you had it as a great big canvas, and you were, I don't know. It wasn't my thing anyway, of course, Anybody can do a series of half circles making a rainbow. So, but as simple as it sounded, it was quite the challenge. I still don't, to this day, remember how I figured out how to do it, because you've got, let's say you've got 2 tiers, and you've got 8 top and 8 top and 8 bottom, and starting from the center bottom is the bottom of the radiance, like a sunrise, half circle, and everything expands out in an arc from there. So you've got you've got all the different pieces of cloth, all in part of that curvature, and it wasn't like I could lay them all out somewhere and scribe out pencil lines or anything like that. I had to work it out. I worked it out mathematically, and I don't remember how I did it. I still puzzle over that today. I know at the time I was like, hadn't got a clue, and I was like, and then I suddenly had a brainwave, and I just got putting stuff down on paper never really worked. I've tried it, and every time I actually go to do something, if it's construction or a tie-dye or whatever, you basically just improvise. And it works better because, nothing's like it looks like on a picture. Just because I grew up or spent time as a quantity surveyor working from architects' drawings and translating it into a building, there's a set form for all of those parts. And it's all just straightforward. It's lineal, basically. And but anyway, this was quite the project. I think by then I was I had there was an outbuilding. I think it was behind Goldie's place, and I had my tables, the countertops that Randy Houston had built for the bakery, for the one in Point Reyes in the old Bank of America building, and they were beautiful, big, high, perfect working height, and long, 16 feet long, and I was able to set them up back to back and had this great work surface that I could get around and lay this thing out. And I remember there was, I wished I could remember his name, because he has photos of the actual construction of this Rainbow Tunnel one, which was the 1982 backdrop. It was my least favorite backdrop. The results, I thought they weren't very good, but it still came out okay for for the big scale. And so that was, that gig came off again. They were sewn by the San Francisco Opera Company, and put up on the backboard, which was reconstructed for the event. And looked good from a distance. It wasn't perfect. I could have done better. I could have used broader strokes, so to speak, so it wasn't so busy and made more of a rainbow effect. But I was working on each panel at a time, and I tend towards detail, so there's lots and lots and lots to look at. The more you look in, the more there is to see. And I didn't have the big picture quite for that, because it even though it was just one design, half rain, like a rainbow, it wasn't like a rainbow. It was just an arc with all these panels that kind of radiated out with lots of colors, even though there was a theme to it. It was a bit busy. People liked it. I don't really get much feedback on that one. People don't really remember it, but they remember the Serpentine one, and of course the third one, which was a whole geometry puzzle, which I'll tell you about. But the kind of the years kind of blurred by. There was a bunch of early years getting things going again, getting clear of bad ways, and questionable company, and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to bicycle everywhere. That was one of the attempts at fitness and keeping my energy up. And Douglas Garn had this really big frame. He was quite tall. He had long legs, and he gave me this bicycle. It was a really big frame, but boy, did it go fast, and it was quite lightweight. And so I would, I was living out in West Marin, and I just bicycle into town and back without a thought. And it's a good stomp, half an hour each way on a pretty major hill. So that was good, and I was still keeping my running up. And so, despite my ways, I was my gray ways. I was keeping on top of things pretty well. But we'll call it here, yeah. And I'll get something else prepared. Hey, that was Ruby's squirrel she just stepped on.
Oh, thanks so much, Courtney. That was great. And
Thank
I hope
you,
you
Heidi.
enjoyed the 30th episode. And if you're enjoying these, please share with your friends. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we look forward to seeing you again really soon. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.